The message in fire. Earth orbit, UN Defense Command. Year 2134. The stars were silent the night humanity decided to scream. Commander Lynn Reyes stood on the bridge of Aegis Station, Earth's orbital command hub. Below her, the blue planet shimmered in serene ignorance. Above, the object drifted inward, massive, slow, and silent as a glacier. No signal. No movement. No response. Just mass. Just purpose. The object had entered the solar system 2 weeks ago, emerging from behind Neptune with unnatural velocity, decelerating with precision only intelligent design could achieve. 32 kilometers wide. Smooth. Obsidian. No lights, no propulsion flare, no emissions. A ghost. A weapon. Maybe a god. World leaders had argued for days. Scientists begged for more time. Reyes watched the countdown anyway. They called it diplomacy. She called it delay. When the resolution passed, it was unanimous. Humanity would answer the unknown not with words, but with Prometheus. It wasn't a missile. It was annihilation. A relativistic kill vehicle, accelerated by magnetic rail through Earth's orbital cannons, capable of striking with the energy of 1,000 nuclear warheads. It was built not to kill a target, but to erase it from history. Reyes gave the order. Her voice did not shake. 3 weeks later, Earth was still standing. And Prometheus had come home. It arrived in orbit without warning. One moment, the sky was empty. The next, a silent echo of Earth's fury hovered in geosynchronous orbit, gleaming, unfamiliar, and wrong. "This isn't Prometheus," Reyes said, staring at the sensor readouts. "Where's the uranium core? The kinetic housing?" "It's evolved," replied Dr. Tanaka, the lead systems analyst. "Same mass signature. Same frame size. But the materials are alien. It's not a weapon anymore. It's something else." On the holoscreen, the object rotated slowly. What had once been a jagged, tungsten warhead was now smooth and angular, wrapped in flowing bands of alloy that shimmered like water under moonlight. It emitted no heat. No radiation. It moved like it was thinking. "We launched a bomb," Reyes whispered. "And they sent it back." Tanaka turned, eyes wide. "They improved it." The world reeled. Media outlets called it everything from a divine omen to a technological insult. Governments panicked. Militaries scrambled. But Reyes only watched, silent, as the object held position. It never moved. It never spoke. But sometimes, just sometimes, it pulsed, once every 24 hours. A slow, measured signal. As if marking time. As if waiting. Dr. Tanaka's team began to study it. The alloys were self-repairing. The systems inside defied physics, folded dimensions, non-Euclidean geometries, signals encoded in subspace harmonics. It wasn't just tech. It was a response. "They didn't retaliate," Tanaka said one night, half drunk and half awake. "They didn't misunderstand the bomb. They understood it. They saw our weapon, and they answered in kind." "You think this is a gift?" Reyes asked. Tanaka stared into the holoscreen. "No. I think it's a conversation." 1 week later, it opened. Not like a machine, but like a flower blooming in zero gravity. The outer plates folded outward, revealing a chamber within, a seat, shaped like a human spine. In its center pulsed a soft white glow, like a heartbeat. A neural interface. One Reyes had never seen before. One built for a human mind. "We sent a bomb," she said aloud to the team. "And they sent it back, upgraded. Not as a threat. As an invitation. Reverse Genesis. Global Space Research Command. Geneva, Earth." Dr. Myra Shankar had studied alien hypothetical contact scenarios her entire career. None of them involved humanity sending a bomb and receiving a miracle in return. The object, Prometheus, or what was left of it, rested in a zero-G vault beneath Geneva. Its outer shell was smooth, warm to the touch, and unervingly quiet. Not in the absence of noise way. It was the quiet of intention. Like it was holding its breath. And waiting. Myra floated beside it, her gloved hand tracing the lines of the now open interface chamber. The seat in the center, curved to match a human spine, pulsed gently, rhythmically. "We've run every scan we have," said Quan, her assistant, watching from the observation bubble. "No radiation, no life signs, no emissions. It's dormant." "No," Myra said softly. "It's listening." She wasn't sure how she knew, but she did. Every instinct screamed that the thing was watching her, studying her, just as she studied it. And it felt patient. Not menacing, not hostile. Just present. The kind of presence a teacher has when watching a student try to solve a riddle. The official stance was caution. No direct interface. No neural links. Not until full safety protocols were complete. Myra waited as long as she could. Then she broke protocol. The moment the neural jack slid into place at the base of her skull, reality changed. She wasn't in the chamber anymore. She was falling through stars. Light bent in impossible patterns, weaving language from color, emotion from form. Images and sensations flowed through her mind, not as messages, but as feelings. She saw herself as they saw her, a bipedal, carbon-based species, defined not by aggression, but by intensity. Passion. Drive. Fire. In the span of seconds, or years, she lived their extinction. Their worlds, once filled with light and wonder, consumed by something cold. Not a race. Not a war. Something worse, a silence that spread through minds and stars, eating thought, consuming will. They had sent out warnings. Beacons. Please. And then, Prometheus arrived. A weapon wrapped in desperation. They hadn't seen it as a threat. They had seen it as a signal. They took it apart. Understood it. Rebuilt it. Not to harm, but to answer. And to arm. Myra awoke in the chamber, gasping, the neural link sparking as she tore it free. Quan was yelling, alarms were sounding, medics were flooding in, but all she could think about was what she had seen. "They're gone," she whispered. "What happened?" Quan asked, kneeling beside her. "They tried to warn us. Before they died." Later, in the debriefing room, Commander Reyes listened in silence as Myra explained. She told them about the vision, about the alien minds, the knowledge, the fear. "They didn't upgrade the bomb to show off," Myra said. "They upgraded it because they knew what was coming. Something killed them, something old, powerful, and utterly alien. And they wanted us to be ready." Reyes frowned. "Ready for what?" Myra hesitated. Then said, "Something that devours civilizations. Thought. Memory. Purpose. It doesn't conquer, it erases. Like entropy with a will. And this." Reyes gestured to the interface chamber on the monitor. "What is it now? A gift. A warning. And a weapon." Reyes nodded slowly, then turned to the window. Outside, above the clouds, the reformed Prometheus floated in low orbit, no longer a bomb, but something far stranger. Far more powerful. It had traveled across the stars, reborn by alien hands, and returned not with vengeance, but with hope. "They thought our bomb was a message," Reyes said at last. "It was," Myra replied. "We said, we exist. And they answered, so did we. Now fight for both of us." The gift of violence. ESS Revelation, Edge of Human Space, 6 months later. Captain Ishan Blake had never believed in omens. But standing at the edge of a system that shouldn't exist, chartless, dark, surrounded by a lattice of broken stars, he began to reconsider. The ESS Revelation, Earth's first interstellar vessel, wasn't just a ship. It was a monument to desperation and rebirth. Its heart pulsed with the core of the alien upgraded Prometheus, now called the Prometheus Drive. It folded space like paper, bending the laws of physics with technology humanity still didn't fully understand. Blake had commanded warships before, but never something alive. "Final jump complete," reported Ensign Veer. "We're in the designated coordinates." "Any contacts?" Blake asked. "Nothing human. Nothing living." Blake rose from the command chair. "Let's find out who's still listening." The alien system, once the home of the species that had returned Prometheus, was a graveyard. A shattered Dyson shell floated around a dead star, vast plates and curved habitats blown apart, drifting like the bones of a god. There was no radiation, no wreckage, just emptiness, except for one structure still intact. The crew called it the lantern. A single spire, a kilometer tall, rotating slowly, glowing with the same soft pulse as the Prometheus core. Shankar, now head of Xeno-intelligence and liaison for the mission, joined Blake at the landing bay before they descended. They called it a message in fire, she said, checking her neural uplink. But I think this place, this spire, it's the final chapter. Blake grunted. Let's hope it doesn't end the same way. Inside the lantern, they found an interface. A sphere, hovering in the air, surrounded by holographic threads that shimmered in response to human presence. When Shankar linked in, the room came alive. This time, Blake saw it too. Visions. Data. A story poured into their minds, raw and ancient. The alien species called themselves the Lirini. Peaceful. Curious. Once spread across dozens of systems. Then the silence came. They called it the Nullwake. Not a species. Not a war. A force, one that consumed higher-order thought. It fed not on bodies, but on minds. Culture. Language. Memory. It erased civilizations by collapsing identity itself. And when the Lirini tried to resist, it learned from them. So they fled. Built relics. Left behind messages carved in paradox and metaphor. They knew they wouldn't survive. But maybe, one day, someone else would. And then Prometheus arrived. A weapon built by a violent species too stubborn to die quietly. A signal of resistance. The Lirini saw in humanity what they had lost. Fire. Instinct. Defiance. They couldn't stop the Nullwake. But they could shape the last surviving bomb they received into something new. A gift. A torch. A final act of rebellion. Back aboard the Revelation, Blake paced the command deck as Shankar finished decoding the last data burst. They weren't trying to scare us, she said. They were trying to prepare us. They saw our violence as a language of survival. They made our bomb into a shield, Blake muttered. Shankar shook her head. No. A seed. Blake turned to the view outside. In the distance, the lantern began to dim. A transmission burst into the stars. Coordinates. A warning. A call. It was a map. The Nullwake had moved on. But it was still out there. And now, humanity had its trail. Later that night, alone in his quarters, Blake recorded a message for Earth Command. 6 months ago, we launched a weapon. We expected nothing back but silence or fire. Instead, we were answered. He paused, looking at the map rotating in the air before him, systems marked with red, others blinking blue. The edge of extinction, traced across the void. They upgraded our bomb. Not because we asked. Not because we earned it. But because they saw in us something worth saving. He leaned forward. And now we owe them a debt. We are the inheritors of their final hope. The fire they passed to keep the dark at bay. We are the fire. Earth orbit, Promethean Command Nexus. 1 year later. The stars had changed. Not in their placement or their light, but in how humanity looked at them. They were no longer symbols of wonder or possibility. They were battlegrounds waiting to be drawn. Commander Lynn Reyes stood aboard the PNS Valiant, the lead ship of Earth's new defense fleet, the Promethean Initiative. What had begun as a bomb had become a doctrine. Survive, evolve, strike first if necessary. Every hull in orbit bore the mark of the Prometheus core, alien tech integrated into human steel, blazing with the fire of 2 civilizations. This isn't a fleet, Reyes had told the UN just months earlier. It's a promise. Today, that promise was being tested. Deep beyond the edge of mapped space, the Nullwake had found them. It arrived not in ships, but in pulses, void storms that disrupted thought, froze systems, collapsed AI into recursive silence. Space warped around its approach like it was rejecting the very idea of presence. The systems it touched went dark. Colonies went quiet. And then, one whispered back. A small outpost on Europa's outer moon transmitted a scream of data before falling silent. No visuals. Just patterns, corrupted memories, overlapping voices, and one final, trembling message. It's inside our thoughts. In the war room of the Valiant, Captain Blake stood beside Reyes and Dr. Shankar. The three of them, bound by the Prometheus legacy, had become the spine of Earth's new resistance. "The data confirms it," Shankar said grimly. "The nullwake is conscious. Not like us, more like a distributed field of unbeing. It doesn't fight. It infects what makes life aware. Language, identity, even memory." "And the upgraded core?" Reyes asked. Shankar gestured to the projection of a contained test run. "The Lirini enhancements shield the mind. Like armor for cognition. But only in close proximity. That's why our ships matter. They're not just weapons. They're sanctuaries." Reyes nodded. "Then we bring the fire to the dark." The first engagement happened near the Kuiper Belt. The nullwake manifested as a field of static, black shapes shifting like smoke and suggestion, trailing long behind a point of gravitational distortion. There was no fleet. No orders. Just decay, spreading through reality like rot in a forgotten room. The Valiant moved first. Prometheus drive systems activated, generating pulses of structured noise, signal patterns learned from the Lirini archive. It struck the nullwake field like thunder. And the field hesitated. The fleet followed. Human ships moved in formation, no longer just with missiles, but with resonance disruptors, thought shields, and mimetic firewalls. Alien tech. Human instinct. The enemy rippled, recoiled, and for the first time since it had awakened in the dark between galaxies, it met resistance. Blake stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the writhing distortion ahead. "It's trying to learn us," Shankar warned. "It adapts to thought patterns. It's already rejecting the Lirini code." "Then we stop thinking like them," Blake replied, "and start thinking like us." He gave the order. The Valiant powered up its main core, a focused weapon built into the Prometheus matrix. Not a missile. Not a beam. A message. Pure human emotion. Rage. Defiance. Loss. All encoded into a waveform and launched directly into the nullwake's heart. The field convulsed. And then, for the first time in recorded history, it fled. A week later, the fleet returned home battered, but victorious. Earth celebrated. But Reyes knew better than to declare peace. In her final address to the UN Assembly, she stood alone at the podium, holding a piece of the original Prometheus hull, charred metal, now etched with Lirini script. "We were never meant to survive this long," she said. "Not by the stars. Not by fate. Not by any divine hand. We should have destroyed ourselves a dozen times over." She held up the fragment. "But we didn't. Because fire doesn't ask permission to burn." She looked out over the chamber. "They sent us our bomb back, not to stop us, but to show us who we were becoming. Not conquerors. Not saviors. Just the last light in the dark." Somewhere, beyond the black horizon, the nullwake recoiled. It remembered fire.